All right. Well, welcome to not meet the band, but meet the people behind the band as we lead up to the first Future of Rock Festival coming up in May. And we help kick off the School of Rock's Road to Summerfest tour. So with me, I have Caleb and Lucas, whose official title is director, band director?
Music director.
Music
of
director.
The school. So, like, technically, I'm Caleb's boss.
Oh,
he likes to say that.
But I mean, it's more collaborative than that.
Sure.
You know, I try not to see it so much as like a leveling system, but yeah, I'm in charge of the
something goes
music that
wrong
gets
though,
played.
it's your fault, right?
Right, exactly.
That's how I play it.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then Caleb, you're an instructor there, and you help out with a little bit of everything, right?
Instructor, and then I actually forgot, what is my title for the class? Doesn't it a different title?
Show director.
Show director.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
All right on.
Yeah.
So I like to just get a little bit of everybody's lore and origin stories. So, when did Lucas first play a musical instrument or discover that you had a passion for music?
So those are two different answers.
Okay.
So I did technically play a musical instrument when I want to say it was like 4th or 5th grade. They introduced classical instruments like viola and cello and stuff like that. So I tried viola, was my first one, but I gave it up after probably like 3 months. And then in 6th grade is when I started doing percussion. Because I was born with a cleft palate, so I couldn't make the proper embouchure for like horn instruments.
Oh,
so I was
gotcha.
left by default with percussion.
Yeah.
And I quit that, but then they put me in it anyway in 7th grade. And I'm stubborn. I didn't want to quit again, so I just stuck with it, and now I'm here. But when I became passionate was probably by 8th grade.
Okay.
Just because I moved to a new school system in the middle of 7th grade. And then once I kind of got settled into that school system, that's where I started making friends in band and in choir and all that stuff. Probably about that same time as when I found the band Journey. And they kind of were the first band that inspired me musically. I was like, oh, this is great, That Steve Perry,
yeah.
I mean, he's such a great just front man.
Right.
And so he really draws you in. So that's kind of where it started.
Okay. Caleb?
I've done choir, I think, all my life, since I was in diapers. No, I think I started choir when I was in 6th grade. I got a solo as Frosty the Snowman singing Blue Christmas. Refused to wear the suit, but yeah, I picked up random instruments throughout my life. I grew up with a piano in the house, but it was always out of tune, so never really did much with that. In 10th grade, 9th grade, I picked up a harmonica and decided that was going to be my thing for a little while.
Nice.
I'm okay at harmonica. But then I think it was right after I graduated high school, I bought an acoustic guitar off of my buddy's girlfriend. She was selling it for $100, and I was like, I've always been, had a little bit of interest in this. So I picked it up, and then it changed my life,
Yeah.
Not to be over dramatic about it, but just learning all the different things I could do with this one instrument versus a harmonica. I've got 9 notes,
Right.
But yeah, I started taking lessons in college. Just with you and Journey. When I heard Weezer for the first time was probably 6th grade, and I was like, man, these are some nerdy dudes doing music that I enjoy. I feel like I can relate to that a lot. He's the front man, but he's so awkward. He's painfully awkward, but he's still writing this riff rock that I really enjoy. So I just kind of went from there. I didn't even pick up an electric guitar until I think 2 years into college, maybe the first year. But it just kind of kept growing from there. I've always had a passion for singing, and I'm not going to pretend I'm an operatic singer or anything like that. But I was always told I had a smoky quality in my voice, so I kind of lean bluesy when I come up with things. Kind of with what you said. My passion and my start were two different points.
Sure.
I'd say that my passion for it really grew in college. Kind of when I met these guys. We did band stuff probably not until our last year there, but yeah, just it's nice being around a lot of people who have the same kind of general interests as you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we talked about with a lot of the kids as they come in for the interviews about the bands and whatnot is, and we see it obviously, being a parent and a student as well and I'm sure you guys can see it all the time, is like these kids maybe don't have as many friends at school that share the same interests in them and whatnot, but a lot of them talk about, finding their people, whether it's school rock or wherever they're going for lessons. So, what is your guys' perception of that or experience of, seeing some of these kids that maybe go there for 4 or 5 years and just kind of how they grow and evolve? Oh
man. One of my very first students when I first started the school was like so shy that he wouldn't even like talk to me in our lessons. Like kind of head down, like he would listen to me when we're talking about like, what we need to learn. Decided to go into a class. He decided to go into a class and he was the kid who was just like in the corner. Cut to now, and I'd say that he's easily one of the, well, I don't want to say more liked. He's really come out of a shell.
Yeah.
In terms of like, he used to talk to no one and now he talks to everybody.
Sure.
It's really nice to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my 5 years being there, I've seen countless kids kind of go from what he's saying, like that shy kid in the corner, to, and it varies. Sometimes they really blossom and they just become chatterboxes. Other times they just get a little bit more comfortable, sure. And that's okay too. But yeah, there's just so many kids that come in the door that like you can just kind of see it in their eyes that like, oh, okay, this is like my place. This is where I belong,
right.
And that's like the culture I try to cultivate, every year, every day. Just trying to keep that going so that we get more kids in that, like, maybe just like you said, don't have a whole lot of friends outside of, maybe a very close knit group, or maybe not at all, and they come here and they make some friends. And it's just, it's really exciting. And sometimes they find out they go to the same school.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I didn't even know. Right. And then they start talking about like, have you ever had this teacher or this teacher, And so, it's just really cool. It's a very unique experience, and it's just very, it kind of puts things in perspective, because like I do see kids come in at like 14 or 15, and then by the time they graduate high school, they're like a completely different person.
Yeah.
There's many members in our current house band that were like that, as well as previous house band members, and it's just really cool and really exciting to see.
Yeah. One of the reasons we kind of started the foundation and like the belief system that I think the school rock sort of is kind of their philosophy, and that I think is really important is, you guys aren't just giving music lessons, like it's performance based, right? And like all these kids are learning how to be in a band. So I imagine as an instructor, as a band director, like that brings its own unique challenges, like, because you're not just teaching these kids how to play a guitar or how to play the drums, like it's also how to set up a drum set and how to run PAs and whatnot. So talk a little bit about, kind of how you manage that and, what your day looks like trying to plan out how to teach these kids everything about being a musician.
Yeah. So, for me, I start with the music. Obviously, you're not going to be comfortable on stage until you know what you're playing, right? Once we kind of get past that, that's where I start talking to the kids about, like, okay, you've got your parts down. Now, are you listening to each other? Are you communicating? That's one of the biggest things that I always stress is, like, communicating non-verbally, especially, like, across the board. You don't have to always be like, hey, what part are we on? Like, there's a way you can say it without saying it, but also just listening to each other, making sure that you're blending together and you're not overpowering any one person. It's like, I always encourage kids to watch their bands live, whether it's on YouTube or even actually in person, and just kind of take in what like they do, why they sound so good and why they've stood the test of time. It's like a lot of that stuff is just they're listening to each other, and they've got that nonverbal communication. And then beyond that, just diving more into like different tones, what's the proper setting on my guitar amp, or how do I hit the drums softer but without losing power, like there's lots of different small technique things that kind of come up throughout the seasons, kind of unprompted, and just kind of being prepared with the answers is a big part of that. And I don't always have the answers. Sometimes they come to me in the moment, but I do encourage kids to like just try new things and try not to like settle with where they're at, you know, always trying to push and strive for different things, just different ways of going about things, thinking about, I've played this chord this way so many times, let me try it a different way, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, all those fine details.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the things that I like to tell the kids when they say, like, you know, like, name a guitarist, I'm not as good as that person. Well, I mean, don't compare yourself, man. Like, you should only compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Like, do you like what you're doing today better than what you were doing yesterday? Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that I like to go off of is like dynamic changes, like kind of like you were saying, just making sure that they understand the differences that it sounds, you know, to the crowd. Mm-hmm. Like those things, those subtle differences that you might not be able to hear as much on stage, make a big difference when you're in the audience.
Yeah.
You know, and performance, honestly. Being comfortable on stage is not easy, especially if you're not like a theater kid, like I assume you were. I know I was. But yeah, you know, one of the things my theater directors would always tell us was like, if you don't feel stupid, you're not doing it right. You know, so like, get goofy with it. You know, when I teach, I'm goofy, just kind of by nature. So just apply that to the stage, you know?
Nice. Yeah. So, you know, one of the initiatives, the initiative we started with last year was, you know, getting the kids to Summerfest. I know the school's gone several times over the years. You said you've been there 5 years, so that's what, three times you've gone to Summerfest?
5 years, yeah.
How many times have you gone? Just the last two?
Just the
last one. Okay, so this is great. I get different perspectives here. So, like, you know, walk me through the first time, you know, Steph says, hey, we're going to Summerfest this year. Like, what goes through Lucas's brain there?
Well, honestly, it was kind of like, I wasn't sure what to expect because the owners had been to Summerfest as parents previously, so they kind of knew what to expect. I had no expectations. And so it was a little intimidating, but also exciting at the same time. And the actual experience itself, I would say, was just kind of incredible. You know, we drove up there and we had just 5 days where we were just enjoying, like, being around all the festivities and stuff. And the process of getting to that point was kind of exhausting a little bit, but it was really fun. And we had a lot of opportunities to play the full Summerfest sets live, and that was really special as well. And I appreciate, like, having the ability to do that. And now that I have, you know, this is our third year going, I have the experience that I have now of, like, what worked and what didn't the last 2 times. You know, I'm trying to game plan better. I'm being more, like, headstrong about it and making sure that people are working on stuff so we're not doing things so last minute. Yeah. Because that could be always, like, daunting. Right. Because it's like, oh, we got 2 weeks until we go and we still have trouble spots. Like, I'm trying to avoid that at all costs, you know. So just trying to put in extra effort on my end, and, you know, raising the expectations just a little bit, you know, just so that by the time we get to the actual event, everybody's comfortable, you know. But it was that first year was just very magical, very special. It's like the first time going to Disney, you know what I mean? So,
well, and it's almost like from my perspective, it's like a microcosm of just the overall music experience for these kids. Like, talking about kids coming in shy and whatnot, an introvert, and coming out of their shell. Like, for these house band kids, like, that 1 week in the summer, like, you're looking at 2 different people.
Oh, for real. Yeah, I mean, I'm just speaking, you know, because I don't have to do any logistical side of it. Right. You know, I was just chaperoning, so my experience with it was mostly in the audience, and, you know, just seeing them, like, even kids who are well out of their shells already. Sure. You know, seeing them play on the same stages as, like, very famous bands, like bands that they might listen to, you know. It just, like, brings something out of them, you know. Like, it was, you know, I mean, I'm going to use the same word. It was magical to see them playing on those stages, you know. It was something else. And in front of crowds that make what they play here in town look small, you know. Like, they just huge crowds just here for these kids to hear them play. Yeah.
Yeah, and they sounded incredible, right? It's like, it was like they cranked it up to 11 for that whole week, for sure.
And what's fun about it is, like you kind of mentioned there, is like, the last 2 years it's been proven, but, like, the kids before Summerfest and the kids after Summerfest they're different. Yeah. You know, they're, like, almost way more blossomed. They've bloomed even more, you know, just by being around that. So it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know the actual history of it or whatnot. I believe I was told that at least one or two kids, didn't get to go to Summerfest a couple years ago. And last year, with the foundation and everything, everybody went. I don't know if that was the first time it's ever happened or if it was the first time in a while, but what's your takeaway on that, and like how cool was it that everybody got to go be a part of that?
Yeah. So the first year, I know one of the kids, it was happenstance. They had booked a trip to Paris or something like that.
Oh, they had conflict.
You know, and I mean, he had a great time in Paris, but but we did have another student, that like, it was kind of a financial thing and it was just kind of a headache. So, it was nice. It was very like relieving that like we had that foundation in place to, encourage the kids to be a part of it. And like, then they wouldn't feel like they would have, like they'd miss out, you know what I mean? So I'm just very grateful that we're able to like do that and take the kids and they don't have to stress out so much. They could just worry about playing the music and playing it well.
Yeah. So, yeah, for sure.
Which is all, I mean, that's what they should be worrying about, It shouldn't be a thing about money. So like the foundation's like hugely helpful with that. It's nice to see that so many people in the community, outside of parents, outside of teachers, just people in the community willing to put money forth to like make sure that these kids can go play live music at a huge festival.
Right. Yeah. My little cheesy tagline I've been telling people is like, I want to eliminate the catchphrase, starving artists, right? It's like we all go out, we all appreciate music. Everybody's listening to music, whether it's on your phone or in your car or whatever. Like we shouldn't just expect people to do that in their free time in addition to their day jobs, right? Like we should do more to help them.
That's why bands get managers.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
well, especially for like, like kids, half these kids don't have jobs,
right?
Because they're too young, you know? So it's nice that we have a way for them to be able to afford this without any stress behind it. Just go play your music and have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully this will air before next Saturday, April 19th. We've got the Road to Summerfest, our second annual now. Hopefully it'll become a tradition at the Waiting Room. Awesome venue in town. Yeah. Really cool place for the kids to play. I think last year we raised like $6,000 that day, so hopefully we can beat that. And then we've got the festival coming up in May, trying to bring a little piece of Summerfest here to the Omaha area. We've got 8 bands lined up. It's going to be awesome. I just want to thank you guys for what you do. It's super appreciated. So that's why we made this, to kind of help keep that thing alive. And if you're watching this in the future, hopefully it was a cool story, and we'll be back next year with more cool stories. So you guys have any closing thoughts or anything?
Just, keep doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and it'll take you pretty far.
Awesome.
Don't be afraid to look stupid. I already said it once.
Right?
Yeah. Get up on stage. Be goofy.
Awesome.
It's a fun time.
Well, thank you guys for coming out today. And we'll see you Saturday at the show.
Cool. We'll see you then.